Welcome back to another episode of the Meat Mafia podcast. If this is your first time joining us, we have one goal and one goal only, and that is that you, yes, you, listen to this podcast and get at least one valuable piece of information that inspires you to go radically change your health today. If this is your second, third, fourth, or 100th time listening to the Meat Mafia podcast, we are so grateful to have you, and we are so thankful for your continued support. Before we get going, if you would not mind going and following us on all of our platforms, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and of course, Twitter, we would greatly appreciate it. This just allows us to expand our reach, and your reviews, comments, and feedback give us more and more things to think about and improve the show with. Lastly, this is a user-supported podcast and newsletter, and we would not be able to do what we love doing without your generous support and the support from our sponsors. We take great pride in the relationships that we've built with our sponsors and truly believe that they are the best resources out there for better health. Your support and their support, and you supporting them, means the world to us. If you are enjoying the podcast and getting value out of it, please check us out on the Fountain app below, where you can support us by streaming us sats or sending us support via our Fountain Bitcoin wallet. Without further ado, here is a word from our sponsors. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the Carnivore Bar. The Carnivore Bar is a veteran-owned, animal-based company focused on bringing you the highest quality pemmican product on the market. Pemmican is an ancient tradition practiced by American indigenous cultures, and it's focused on simple ingredients: beef, tallow, and salt. It's built for grab-and-go snacking, and it's a great sort of travel, hiking, or school lunch snack. And it's really built for those long-lasting days where you can just run on basically no fuel other than just simple fats. It's rich in saturated fats and provides everything you need to sustain long-lasting energy throughout the busy day. In my opinion, this is a product that is an absolute must, so go check it out in the link below. Also, check out our podcast with the founder, Philip Meese. He does an incredible job breaking down the mission and the passion behind the company. And I think if you're interested in animal-based nutrition, Philip will inspire you with his product. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Holy Cow Beef. Holy Cow Beef is regeneratively raised, grass-fed, grass-finished beef raised right here in Lubbock, Texas. Regeneratively raised, grass-fed, grass-finished beef is the gold standard of beef, and Ann and Weldon Warren have made it their lives' mission to provide incredibly high-quality beef to their local community and beyond. They have been raising their animals this way for decades. In fact, they were some of the most influential voices for getting grass-fed and grass-finished beef in Whole Foods back when Whole Foods was a startup grocery store. They were influential in setting the AGA standards, which is the American Grass-Fed Association, so you know they are doing things the right way, and on top of all of that, their beef tastes like butter. Grass-fed, grass-finished beef provides a superior omega-3 to omega-6 ratio than your typical beef, or in other words, it causes less inflammation in your body. So you are promoting a high protein, high fat diet with this amazingly high quality beef, and saturated fats are playing their critical role in benefiting your body through supporting hormonal functions and cellular functions. And if you're looking for the highest quality beef, look no further than Holy Cow Beef. Leave your butcher box, that Australian and New Zealand raised meat, in the cart and order from your friends Ann and Weldon Warren over at Holy Cow Beef. I almost forgot the most important part there. Ann and Weldon Warren also accept Bitcoin as payment, so go check them out at their website in the link below, and you can pay in Bitcoin or in cash if you're looking to save your Bitcoin. I don't know about you all, but I am all about rewriting the incentives when it comes to healthcare, and Crowd Health is doing just that. Crowd Health is essentially crowdfunding for healthcare with a small HSA component mixed in. Paying through the nose for health insurance you may never use, only to be turned away when you actually need it, is incredibly frustrating. Also, the exorbitant costs of health insurance has so many baked-in premiums that when you compare settling your doctor's bills by paying in cash versus using insurance, the cost is astronomical. So crowdfunding allows you to settle your medical bills in cash and then get the funding you need from your group through Crowd Health. This is a great alternative to health insurance for people who are low risk, healthy people who just want peace of mind knowing that if anything actually did happen, they do have a pool of funds to pull from to cover their medical costs. The best part? My group is saving a portion of the monthly opt-in in Bitcoin, and the rest is in cash. So those savings are going towards actually preserving long-term value for my group through a vehicle like Bitcoin. We are really excited about this concept, and since the business model is predicated on an incentive-based healthcare, it is a great concept. For people with low risk, minimal healthcare costs, it is a no-brainer. Go check them out in the link below and use our promo code MAFIA for a discount on your first 6 months with Crowd Health. Got all the rules, Peter.
Man, that was part of the show.
It is.
It is. And now we can start talking to each other officially.
Officially.
Jose's the man.
It's only natural in Marty's studio. The first time we recorded with Marty, we did this rolling start. We didn't even know whose show we were on, and we just started recording.
I think rolling starts are the best. My friend's just launched a podcast, and she keeps opening it by saying, "Hello, this is this podcast. Today we're going to talk about this." And I messaged her today. I was like, "Do you want some advice?" And she was like, "Is it to tell me not to do the intro?" I was like, "Yeah, don't do the intro." But I've got a few bits. So I gave her 9 points, but every other one was don't do the intro. I think the rolling starts are the best.
100%.
Yeah, we talk about that too because we started our show in March and I was in San Diego and Harry was in Austin. So we were doing everything virtual over Zoom. And then when we started recording in studio, it is almost awkward. You almost have to retrain yourself to make it as natural as possible because we didn't really know how to kick the show off.
Well, the other thing is we've made 600 odd shows now. And there's only so many times or so much shit you can talk about Bitcoin, right? You want to do some other stuff. And usually what happens when a guest comes and they sit down, you kind of shoot the shit a bit. And that's where you get some good stuff. We had Harry Suddick in yesterday. And he was talking about podcast fatigue. And I was like, stop talking. And then we put the mics on. I was like, go. And so 20 minutes we talked about podcast fatigue, books we were reading. So those rolling starts, I believe I know some people just want you to talk about Bitcoin, but I think they get a bit of personality of who the guest is. So totally. I like a rolling start. 100%.
Was he talking about podcast fatigue from a listener perspective or being on podcast?
Listener. He was like, there's not much I'm enjoying at the moment. Everything's a bit the same. And then, so he said he was doing audiobooks. So he read the Da Vinci biography. We talked about that. And so then we said, we're going to do the Bitcoiner book club. So then he's given me a book to read. Three Body Problem. So me, him, and Danny are going to read that. He's got to read Hail Mary, and we're waiting for Danny to give us one. So we're going to have 3 books to read for the next one.
I love it. So you guys said that you've done 600 episodes?
Yeah, 605, 6. I don't know the number. But
is that incredible for you to think back to how many episodes you guys have actually recorded?
I'll tell you what's more incredible. So the show launched on November the 23rd, I think it was, 2017.
Wow.
A month later, the price of, less than a month, 3 weeks later, the price of Bitcoin is higher than it was now.
It's incredible.
It's fuck.
Great timing.
Sure. It's well, that's a stable coin.
Yeah.
Did you have any idea what the show was going to turn into, or did you just want an outlet to be able to really speak about Bitcoin and interview people that you found interesting in the space?
It's even more basic than that. I just wanted to launch a podcast. I had met this guy called Rich Roll, who has a podcast, vegan ultra athlete. Through a weird chain of events, I ended up on one of his retreats in Italy. I just went, and he was really cool. Got on really well with him, and my life was totally fucked up at that time. Can I swear?
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's fucked up at the time. I'd come off of drug addiction. I'd got divorced, and I've told this a million times, but I got on really well with him. And at the end of it, he said to everyone at this retreat, if you're ever in LA, look me up. And I was like, okay. And then I just booked a flight and went out there and said, hi, I'm here. And we hung out, and I said, look, my company's folded. I need an outlet. I think you have the best job in the world. How do you start a podcast? And so he said, well, you need a topic. This is the equipment you need. This is how you do it. And then be resilient and just stick with it. And Bitcoin was the thing for me at the time. But if I hadn't had Bitcoin, it might have been, it could have been anything. And I think I was very lucky with timing. Because there's a lot of Bitcoin podcasts out there. So I was lucky with timing. I got a background in digital marketing, which I think helped. I think I was just very lucky.
Were you all in from the get-go? Like, did you know that that was what you wanted to be doing for the next handful of years?
I would say when I did it, I didn't think it would be a career change. I thought it would be like a side gig hobby. I mean, Laura Shin was the big podcaster at the time, and I thought she had it sewn up. And my first couple of interviews, they were all right. Here's a question, here's an answer. And I didn't think I could make a career out of it. That just didn't cross my mind. And then it was like episode 10, I think it was like 10, 12. I interviewed Ross Ulbricht's mum, and it was on Ross's birthday, actually. It's the day after her birthday. The birthday's 1 day apart. And that was like a really important story. And I felt like she was telling me an important story. And I was like, oh, I want to do this. Because like I did 3 shows, and then I didn't do any for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But like after that one, I was like, okay, I really want to do this. How do I make this work? Like, how do I make this so I get enough money that this is what I do? Because you love it, right?
Oh,
So much fun.
it's the best. It's
Yeah.
way better than what I was doing before.
What were you doing before?
I was in finance.
And what were you doing?
And I was in
before?
sales,
Yeah, I mean, like corporate bullshit in a cubicle.
100%.
I was in advertising. Like a total prick selling stuff, like telling people, trying to get people to buy shit they don't need. Well, I'm still doing that actually, inadvertently. But like, do you know what I mean? Like my job was was advertising. So, and I hated it by the end because it's just like, what are we doing here? Like, is there any meaning to this? So I just, I think this for me is the best job. And I really feel just blessed and lucky that I get to do it.
Equip's unflavored prime has one single ingredient derived directly from grass-fed beef protein. For purists like ourselves who try to only consume balanced, real sources of nutrition, this protein powder checks all the boxes. Go check them out in the link below and use our promo code in the description to get a discount.
When you had connected with Rich early on, did he give you any tactical feedback about how to get started, how to get good at podcasting? Did he serve as like a mentor to you at all, or?
No. What he did, he said, follow this course. It was the Pat Flynn course. He said that teach you how to do it. And then he said, a lot of people ask me this, and then they start and they don't stick with it. It takes time. It's like, it takes time. That's it. But we chat a lot more now, Reese. Yeah, really. I think like, because I was just another dude who said, how do you start a podcast to him? And then because it's grown and he's seen it grow and he's seen some of my guests, I think I've kind of like I'm not anywhere near his level, but I think I've earned his respect with it. And so, so we tend, like if I'm in LA, we like hang out, get lunch or something. And now he gives me better advice, but he asked me stuff as well. Like he asked me questions about how I'm doing my ad sales or whatever. So yeah, it's, we've kind of, we can talk on a level now, which we didn't have before. It's like, he was this big superstar podcaster and I was just some dude who came to his retreat. And now he's like, yeah, like I can tell I've earned his respect with that.
Yeah, it's probably a cool feeling to go from student to peer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. But he's such a great dude anyway. I mean, do you know him? Do you follow him?
We actually went a year ago, basically. We went on a running group and he was hosting it.
Oh, wow.
We didn't really get to talk to him too much, but he's a great guy. Like he's been an inspiration for us, even though he talks about the other side of the aisle of what we usually talk about, eating meat.
Nutritionally.
He's just a great guy. He's super professional. He's into some of the same topics that we are, like endurance sports. So
well,
we're fans.
I was a vegan at the time. So what happened was my mum got sick. She went vegan. So I went vegan with her. And then I kind of went down the vegan rabbit hole, like wanted to know about it and discovered his podcast. And I was running a lot of the time. And so I would go out running, listen to his podcast or those books. What is it? Born to Run?
Yeah,
all the audio books. I'd work through them. I used to go out nearly every day. I can't run now because of my back, which is a shame, but I used to go out every day and I loved it. And so there's that weird thing where you get to know somebody because of their podcast. Like I have it, people come to me and they say, oh, I've listened to like days of you. And I feel like I knew you. I felt like I knew him. But yeah, he's such a good dude.
Is there anything like your background in digital marketing, did that serve you well as you've grown the show?
I think so. Just because I know branding, I know how to set up a website. I think I know how to make things look okay. I know SEO. I think that helped. You still have to make a show that people want to listen to. I don't want to say a good show because people listen to a shit show, but like you have to make something people want to listen to. And I think the marketing, I think what's helped me more is sales. As a salesperson, I'm a hustler. Like, who was it? You did sales?
Yes.
Yeah, you're a hustler. Doesn't matter. Every salesperson's a hustler, and the hustle was getting the guests. Mm-hmm. That became the hustle, and then the rest of it was just, I think, hard work.
How fun was it in the beginning, just getting these big name guests that you looked up to? And then you're like, in the beginning, you're thinking to yourself, can I actually get them on the show? And then you find your way to get your foot in the door and you're like, holy shit, this person's actually coming on. Someone that I've looked up to for a long time.
Yeah, but like that still exists.
Yes.
Unless you're Joe Rogan, you can get anyone. It still exists. I haven't had Jack Dorsey on. I mean, I'm like desperate to get Jack Dorsey on. Kathy Wood came on the show. I was like, wow, I got Kathy Wood. Like, I think you can always get someone to come on a podcast, and there's always a level above. Mm-hmm. And so that has existed for the entirety of making the show, is that there is these people I want to talk to, that next level.
Yes. There's, we were talking to our buddy Ryan, who's a younger guy, and he was saying how he has a buddy that only has 200 followers on Instagram, but he's had massive guests on, like, I think like Aubrey Marcus and huge guests in the nutritional space. And he was like, how have you done this? Your podcast isn't big. You only have 200 followers. And I think his tactic that's worked for him is he sends really personalized video messages to his guests. And I thought that was really interesting, but it is sales, to your point. And it's always cool just meeting other podcasts and figuring out what tactics really work to get your foot in the door and make yourself resonate with different guests. Just interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I get a lot of emails for people asking to come on the show, and there's generally two types. There is the one where it's a booking agent, and it's like a formula of an email, even to the point sometimes like, they're copied and pasted because they've got your name wrong. It's like, hi, Brian. It's like, no, I'm Pete. And they always start to say, massive fan of the podcast. Really like the show you made here. So they go and find a show. By the way, we would really like to get CEO so-and-so of this product on the podcast. And like, it's not personal. That it's bullshit. And it's, they would just want to promote a product, which you never really want product shows unless you like the person so much or the product's so interesting. Or you get the personalized ones where it's like, Jason Mayer wrote to me and said, listen, I'm writing this book called The Progressive Case for Bitcoin. Can I talk to you? Didn't even ask to come on the show. I asked him to come on the show. So the personalized ones work really well. But that video is really interesting you should say that, because I received a video from a guy, and he said, found you on email. I've made a video for you. I want to work with you. I was like, oh, cool. I'll watch it. And then basically he was just trying to sell, doing marketing for me. And he ended up sending it 4 times, even after I said no. So like, he had his own thing. But the fact that you said that's really cool. I would do that. If there's someone I want, I probably will do that now and say, listen, this is why I want you on. Yeah, that's a really cool idea.
Maybe you could try for Jack, see what happens.
I mean, yeah. We've talked to, like, I've met him at a conference and he said he would do it, but he's a busy guy.
Yeah. Has it surprised you, like, how receptive people are to come on the show, or like, especially when you were starting?
Yeah. I mean, I was with Jameson a lot the other day. He was my 3rd interview, and I wrote to him at the very start. I said, hi, I've started this Bitcoin podcast. Can I come out and interview you, and will you take me to shoot a gun? And he said, yeah. So I was with him the other day. I was like, oh, that was so cool that you said yes. He said, yeah. By the time I said yes to everyone. I was like, all right. But yeah, no, it is really cool. I mean, we're in a different place now whereby, like, if someone comes on the show, they know tens of thousands, maybe over 100,000 people listen to it. So there is this like quid pro quo. You're helping me with my business. I'm helping you with yours. It's like that trade-off. But in the early days, I know it's more weighted to me. They're doing me a bigger favor. It's like, yeah, like 200 people might listen to this and not give a shit. And so that's why, like, if I can help other people and pay it forward, I always will. Whenever anyone writes to me and says, how do you start a podcast? This is what you do. This is what I've learned. This is this, I will write to them back. I don't always go on other people's podcasts because I think I'm not a very good guest. If it's a Bitcoin podcast and they want to talk about Bitcoin, I don't think I'm very good at explaining it. So I usually say no, but I knew you guys, I had that feel we weren't going to ultimately talk about too much Bitcoin. No, because otherwise people will figure me out.
We're just going to shoot the shit.
Yeah.
Maybe talk about Bedford a little bit, talk about podcasting.
Talking about meat.
I mean, we timed it perfectly because we walk into the Bitcoin Commons where our studio is. Bedford's winning. I think they were winning 3-0. They were in beautiful orange uniforms. So
Yeah.
how did you...
Dude, that was a nervy game because we lost our last game. We've only lost 2 games in the league, and the last one we lost was to a team we were expected to beat. They're 18th in the table, we're top. And now we're playing this team, Northampton Chenecks, big team. Good budget, solid players. And I was like, this game is going to let me know where we're at because we haven't actually played a lot of the big teams. And I was like, we've had this great season, but it's like, well, what if we're not good enough? And the team played really well. We got the win and feel good.
What is the feeling like owning a professional football team?
That's a good it's not what you think it will be. Again, like I think being a podcaster is the best job in the world. It's the most fun I've ever had, but it comes with a huge amount of pressure. Our team's basically a startup. We are trying to build a business which has a football team, which can be sustainable and go up through the leagues. And there's so much work. You cannot believe the amount of things you have to do. Like on match day, we have to do a program, take it to the printer, get it printed. We have to make sure the kit's been washed and ironed, hung out for the players. We have to get drinks for the players. We have to get food for the players. We have to get the bar stocked. We have to get the announcer ready. We got the street. Like there is so much to do. So it's hard, but I love it. Honestly, I love it. I'm again, none of this would have happened without Bitcoin. I always wanted to. It's funny. If you had my dad here, he'll tell you when I was a kid, I always said I wanted to buy the local team. And without Bitcoin, it would never happen. Like I cannot afford to buy a football team and get them through the leagues. And so it would never happen without it. So I just feel I've been very lucky in my life. And I think, I'm not going to just like write myself. I'm going to say I haven't done it. I've worked hard, but a weird chain of events led to me discovering Bitcoin, discovering podcasting, and the two coming together that led to new opportunities.
Was owning a team is your vision for that to potentially just grow the club and bring it to the next tier of, I'm not sure how Bedford. I'm going into murky waters here,
right.
but
we're Americans that played baseball
right.
too.
So the interesting thing is you're a capitalist country with a communist sports system, right? It totally is. It's communist.
100%.
It is communist. It's a flat structure. Doesn't matter how shit you are, you never get relegated. And at the end of the season, the worst team gets the best picks, right? Total communism. Whereas we're arguably a bit more commie in the UK, but we have a brutal capitalist sports system. There is a hierarchy of divisions. If you're in the bottom 2, 3, 4, depending on the division, you get relegated to the one below, which is hard. But if you're at the top, you get promoted. So if you want to buy a sports team in the US, you basically have to be a billionaire. You can buy a team in the UK with like 20,000, 30, like nothing, and you can take them up through the divisions. So it's split into the professional and the kind of semi-professional leagues. The professional leagues, as known as the Football League, is the Premier League, Championship, League One, League Two. Then it goes into the non-league. So the first one's the National League. So Premier League, Championship, League One, League Two. Then it goes to the National League. That's where Wrexham are, the team that Ryan Reynolds bought. And then it starts to split. Then it becomes like a pyramid. So it goes National, North, and South. And there's like 4 below that, and then 8, and maybe 16 to 20. So my goal, I think a realistic goal that like I would die happy if we did, is if I got us into the Football League, into those 4 professional leagues. Because we've never had that in Bedford, but we have a population that can support that. There are towns with there's a town called Burnley, population 90,000, that's been in the Premier League. We're 174,000. We've never even had a team in the National League, that 5th tier. If I could get us up to there, honestly, I would be so happy. That would be it. What league are they in right now? We're in the 10th tier. So we're in the Spartans South Midlands Premier League. We're in the 10th. We win this league, we'll go up. So and so they call them steps. So after the 4 professional leagues, National League step 1, we're in step 6. So if we're in step 6, we go to step 5. And you're trying to just work through each step, to get to that chance to get in the Football League.
That's incredible.
Is it linear? Like you have to go through each hoop? Like you have to go up the next notch to make it to...
You can't jump two. You can't jump two. No, it's linear. So it's 6 promotions into the Football League. I've set a ridiculous, probably impossible target of doing it in a decade. Maybe we can, maybe we can't, but yeah, we're going to give it a good shot.
Has anyone else ever done anything similar to that timeline of going from that lower league to top 4 league in 10 years?
No, but there are people who've done impressive things. Dorking started way below us. Like they were Sunday league and they've worked their way. They're the team that's had the most promotions. They've had something like, I don't know, I'm guessing, say 12, 14. They're now in the National League, I think, where Wrexham are. But they've worked up over like 20 years to do that. And it's super impressive. You have had teams go, Salford, which were owned by Manchester United players, Ryan Giggs, David Beckham, Paul Scholes and such. They bought a low team and they've got up into, I think they're League 2, maybe League 1. So they've done that. But there's other impressive things. Brentford were in League 2 and they went League 1, Championship, Premier League, and they're now an established Premier League team. So you've had them do it from the League 2 into the Premier League and you've had it the other one. I mean, I'd love to do the whole thing, but I'm just going to give it a shot. I love my town. I love where I'm from. I love the people. And I absolutely would love us to have a professional football team.
Are you capped with a certain budget? Like attracting talent has to be the hardest part, right? Like getting the right team on the field.
Yeah. So there's no caps, but we have our own internal cap. People think we spend way more than we do. And a lot of people don't like us because we're like with the Bitcoin team. You know, we got a stupid logo like a skull and crossbones, which nobody has in football in the UK. And we got a silly name like Rail Bedford. Like I just did some silly things that I knew would be good marketing. And there's a lot of jealousy in football and there's a lot of banter. So like we've got so many haters. But like, whatever, bring it.
How has it been integrating your passion for Bitcoin to a professional football club?
It's a good question. There's 2 main benefits. Well, there's 3. I mean, look, it's great for sponsors to get behind this and Bitcoiners to get behind this as an idea. It's not like Bitcoin Beach. You know, I haven't turned Bedford into this Bitcoin mecca. A lot of people just don't give a fuck. There is some marginal interest. We put a meetup on before some games. We've had 70 people at a meetup, which is very cool. But really, it's about attracting sponsors who want to get behind the idea. Then we've built this following around the world, mainly in the US, and you know we sold £100,000 of merchandise. I mean, that's a lot of money at our level.
Absolutely.
And I can go to any city, and you know a bunch of people will come out and watch the game. So I think that's been cool. And I think for a small club like us, your opportunity and revenue is your local community. Who comes to the game? Who sponsors? But building a team around an idea, which isn't Bitcoin actually, it's about financial responsibility, of which Bitcoin is the lens, allows you to attract a much broader, wider international group of sponsors and supporters, which gives us an advantage because football is capitalist. Like, I've got some guy bitching me on Twitter after the game saying, you just spend loads of money. It's like, well, what do you want to do? Like, do you want a communist sport? Do you want to speak? Why don't you complain to the league? Say to the league, I'm not happy. We should have a salary cap. Don't blame me. There's an opportunity to invest in my club and get them promoted. I will. So yeah, I mean, it's sometimes, I don't know. Tell me if you get this. Do you ever get times where like you're explaining Bitcoin or somebody asks what you do and you mention Bitcoin, but you feel a little bit embarrassed?
Yeah, naturally, especially if they haven't come across the idea before. Yeah,
it's just hard. So like, there's a little bit of that to deal with as well. But you know, day-to-day running of the club is a business, and we run a football club. But as part of that, we have this Bitcoin thing where we are managing to attract people into following it. Like I come here and there's a guy in a hat or a t-shirt. Like people are getting behind this, and again, I'm so grateful for that because they're supporting. It's essentially my dream.
Yeah, it's cool that it works both ways. Where the Bitcoin community can rally behind what you're doing, but then also like your team gets the benefit from that, and your dream can potentially happen through your passion of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I sometimes just have to pinch myself and just say, stay humble, stack points, and because I just have been so lucky with this. People have all kinds of like sound airy fairy, but like people have all kinds of dreams, and when you get to live, this is it. Like, I mean, I'd love to be like guitarist in Metallica or play football myself, but like in the real world, realistic dreams to actually like be living it, I just feel really lucky.
I mean, you really are blending two of your passions together. How many people can say that they're truly doing that, living their life like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, but they've been blended because one allowed me to do the other. I mean, I'd love to have just been able to buy a shitload of Bitcoin when I first discovered it and made a load of money and just focus on the club. Like, I have to make the two things work together to make it work. But yeah, I'm just very lucky.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned, you said 600 episodes in, you went to Rich Roll in the beginning. You said, hey, I think you have one of the best jobs around. I want to do this. I want to support myself through podcasting. What was the time period where you actually were like, all right, the money is real here and I can support myself doing the show?
When I closed my Kraken contract.
Okay.
Because I had a few little bits of sponsorship here or there, but the Kraken contract was a contract, like actually signed something. It was for a year, and it was for amount of money because like the first year, first maybe 18 months, I lost about 100 grand because I had this commitment to do them in person. So I was coming over to the US, and not like now, it's me with my little K's going from hotel to hotel. But when I got that contract, I was like, right, so for the next year, I can pay myself, I can pay my bills, I can pay Danny. We're not going to lose money. And that was like, okay, this is real. But I also, like, this thing clicks. It's like, okay, if you're willing to pay that, other people will. Like, I now have a thing which is it's gone from hobby to business. And we do treat it like a business. Yeah, anyone in the background listening and wondering about podcasts, it's a passion, but it is a business. It has 6 employees. It has a P&L. It has reporting. It has targets. It has marketing strategy. Like it is a business, and its goal is to be profitable and survive. I mean, it's a different business, but it is a business, and like I don't feel any shame about that because it pays 6 salaries. 6 people have jobs. Danny gets to fly around the world with me. He loves the job. Ben Prentice, you know Ben?
I think so.
I don't.
He did the What the Fuck in 1971 website with that clown dude. He works for it. My brother works for it. I have an assistant now. Like, there are people employed because of this, and you have to respect it as a business. It's when it was just me, it doesn't really matter. If we got to like, if I wasn't on it, making sure, we had that if I wasn't running it like a business, you risk people's jobs. So that doesn't mean we make bad decisions because of it. I know there's been some questions around my sponsors. Always happy to talk about that, but we do have strict policies around that. And there's money we've turned away that would be good, and we don't just like try and get Sailor on every week. We try and have a broad range of guests. It is a business, and absolutely 100% is a business because I want to keep doing this as a job.
Yeah.
The sponsorship one is tricky because I know a lot of people in the Bitcoin space have been taking a lot of criticism for who they've brought on as sponsors.
Yep.
But like, even for us, we're trying to stay core to our niche, which is, we have a bunch of farms who sponsor us and products that are very nutritionally based, but they don't have huge budgets. So it's really, hard stacking the deck to make, your P&L work when you have those types of sponsors. So interested to sort of unpack that with you. Like, what was your thought process when you started taking on sponsors, and like who was going to sponsor the show? Because they're a representation of, who you are, what your show stands for, all that.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. So firstly, the sponsor policies on the website always has been. You have to have a Bitcoin product, and it has to be something I will use. That's it. They're the two things. So do Gemini have a Bitcoin product? Yeah, you can buy Bitcoin on there. And would I use it? No, I actively use it. Casa, do they ever, I mean, they're not sponsored now, but did they, and would I use it? Yeah. Compass, I bought miners through Compass. BlockFi, I had Bitcoin on BlockFi. Whatever you think of Block, I did.
Yeah.
So they were my policies, but I never had a Bitcoin only company policy. And there's a couple of things to that. Firstly, again, like I always think just be transparent. These companies have the budget so we can make this show, and we want to make it in person. And to run this operation and take 3 people around the world and make this, it's not cheap. I mean, per trip costs us $30,000 to $40,000 to make a trip, because I fly in from UK, Danny Australia, Jeremy from Philly, and then half the guests we interview, we fly them in. We pay for their flights and their accommodation. We run it all. We rent an Airbnb, and we have all our equipment. I'm not in Austin. I'm in Bedford. So to make that show in person, it costs to do that. So that doesn't mean we compromise, but it means that I'm okay working with these companies. But I'm also okay working with them because I use their products.
Yes.
So that's kind of like the first thing to say about that. We also only promote their Bitcoin product. You will never hear me say, buy crypto with Gemini. It's like, buy Bitcoin with Gemini. The only time I've veered away from that is because I had a cake wallet, which has Monero, and I'm like cool with Monero. Like, I don't care what anyone yells at me. Am I cool with it? Yes. So that's like something. Remind me of the question, sorry, because I waffled on.
Yeah, I was just asking about, kind of creating alignment with your sponsors and how you actually go through and choose them, which, I mean, you answered the question.
But I also have to have a direct relationship with the people who run the company. It's really important. You don't have to talk all the time, but you have to have that direct line of communication. But it is tricky because sometimes, especially in the Bitcoin space, like, companies have issues. And BlockFi have had massive issues, got into administration, people have lost their Bitcoin. And that's people who've listened to my show and heard my ads saying I'm using it. And so because of that, they've put money in Bitcoin, and that weighs heavily on me. In hindsight, it was probably a mistake to take them on. But we had a 4-year relationship that worked really well. I knew how they operated their business. And then I've obviously since discovered a lot of the lending practices, like crazy lending practices. I didn't know that, but like, it weighs heavily on me. It's a really active conversation me and Danny are having. We're like, can we get away from sponsors, or can we do something subscription based? Can we do something like a Patreon thing whereby that takes down the pressure on sponsors? And we're considering that. We might launch something. And the truth is, if we have to go back to a remote show, we would. But right now, our goal is to be able to carry on doing this and have the right sponsors for us, not for what somebody who yells at me on Twitter says, is it okay with our values and our policies? We've got that wrong before, and we will do our best not to get that wrong again.
It's an interesting dichotomy, because you're saying to these people, you're like, look, you love the show, you've gotten a lot of value out of the show. But at the same time, we also need money to make the show work. We want to align with great sponsors, but you're not always going to pick a winner. It's like, I think mistakes are probably just part of the process, and you're willing to admit that too. Yeah,
I mean, look, I don't run these companies that are sponsors. We have a contract, and I'm going to promote their company. And there's plenty of shit companies I've turned down. I mean, sometimes you get offered ridiculous. It's like things like sometimes like where you get offered like 50 grand for someone just to be a guest on the show, like £50,000
That's insane.
To make one interview. We've never done it, because once you sell that, you've sold the ability to come on the show. So we don't do that. There's like lots of times where things like that happen, and it tests you. I mean, £50,000 is a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
So we are sponsor driven, and if you hear the sponsors, you want to use the products, great. But you also have to be responsible for that relationship. I have to be responsible for my relationship with them, and if I'm aware of something or something worries me, then fine, I will speak to the CEO and whatever. But I cannot take responsibility for a company I'm not running and I don't know what they're doing. That doesn't absolve me of all responsibility, though. We should be doing our own due diligence, and we do. It's super tricky, man.
It's really easy to armchair quarterback someone about their principles too from Twitter.
Yeah.
As opposed to, okay, actually get offered 50 grand wagged in your face and see how strong your principles really are. That's when you learn about someone.
But like, plenty of people warned me about BlockFi a long time ago. Said you shouldn't have them. This isn't going to work. The business model's fucked. I was like, no, it's like I've been with them for years. It's working fine. But then it wasn't. And so I think they can make a good argument. Say, we warned you, Pete. We warned you. So it weighs heavily on us. We think about this a lot. If we could get to a point where we would get away from certain sponsors, certain ideas, then we would, because I don't want to ever go to bed thinking someone's lost Bitcoin because of me. It's hard.
Do you think the world is moving closer to that value for value model of like podcasting and media, where if people are listening to the show, they can just directly support you and give you their money directly, as opposed to, you having to take on sponsors for the show?
Yes, I think we're getting closer. I think the fountain works great. it's a long, long way from where it can finance what we do. It's like it's over $100,000 a month to run this show. That's a lot of money. Wow. We're not going to get that from Fountain. Now, if you could find 3,000 people a month who want to pay $30 a month and get some bonus and some benefits, maybe that'll work. I mean, we have 60, 70, 80,000 listeners per show. Maybe we can convert, a percentage of those who would do that and take us towards that. And I think that would be a good thing. But I don't think I'd ever completely get rid of sponsors because that allows us to do other things. Also, by the way, if with this podcast I could ever make like a shitload of money, I would, and I wouldn't feel guilty about it. Yes. It is a business. I want Unchained to make a shitload of money. I want you guys, like I want everyone to win. And if I can do it, I will. But hopefully in the right steps.
Yes. One of the really cool things you mentioned earlier that I didn't know is that you had sunk $100K into the show when you first started.
Yeah.
I bet you there's so many people that just see you as the finished product now and they're like, oh, fuck, I wish I had a show like that. And they have no idea that you were willing to sink $100K into it in the beginning.
Dude, I'll tell you what happened, right? So I wanted to do it in person and I was flying around the world doing it. And I would go to LA or go to Florida, wherever, I'd make the show and go to the next place and then edit it and publish it. And I sunk $100K in that first year and a half. But by, there was a point I had a lot of money because Bitcoin flew up in 2017. And there was a point in 2018 where I didn't. There was a moment I was 3 weeks away from losing my house. I was nearly broke. Bitcoin had crashed, spent all of my money doing this. And then I got a first call for a sponsor, took it on board, nearly took a job on. I nearly actually took a job.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I was like reaching out to get a job. And then I got another, I think then I got the Kraken deal and I'm like, okay, I can do this. So it was tight. It was fucking tight.
What was your thought process sinking that money into the show and kind of abiding by that rule of doing all the in-person stuff? Was it more along the lines of like, I'm just going to invest in production value and make this thing good from the get-go? Or
do you do any remote shows?
We started off all remote. So our first, we started in March and our philosophy was just get as many episodes done as quickly as possible and like get our rhythm down, but do it virtually so we can get more guests on. So we were banging out like 5 episodes a week, just building out like a list of people who would come on the show that we could then go flip and say, hey, like we've had these people on the show. Will you guys come on? So we get better and better guests. So that was kind of how we started the show, but now we just want to do it in person.
Yeah.
And why?
Way better combo.
So much better rapport, clipping. Now we have Jose on board that's taking the show to the next level. And for the first, up until last month, I was living in San Diego and Harry was in Austin. So we had no other option but to say, hey, if you want to grow the show, you got to do it over Zoom. I was blowing off like 3-4 sales calls a day, pretending like I had other meetings when I was just recording shows together.
But you have that latency issue as well that just fucks the conversation up.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
You like when you do it in person, you get that 5-10 minutes beforehand. You're like, oh, this is who I'm talking to. You have that more emotional connection in person. It's just so much better. When I do them remote, I did one with Doomberg recently and one with Lynn.
Oh, nice.
It's not the guest. It's just me. I don't enjoy it. I'm kind of looking at the clock and I want it that it goes into full job territory.
Yes.
Totally.
And also the conversations are a lot longer in person. I feel like you get into a lot more. It's just a better thing. So I was like, all the top podcasters do it in person. I'm going to make that commitment and I'm going to try and do it. And if it means I have to fly to Florida, stay in a shitty hotel, make 3 shows, get on a plane, whatever the cheapest one I can get to New York, find the cheapest hotel, make 4 interviews, get on a plane, fly to Oregon, do my 2 interviews, get on a plane, go to San Francisco. These are actual trips. Mm-hmm. And I would go to 5-6 cities and I would record 20 shows. I'd go back to the UK and I'll do the same again. We're in the luxury position now. We can go to one place and people will come in. But like, I put the fucking work in.
You've earned that right to be able to do that. Yeah. And it's cool to hear about your commitment because that's something that we're going through right now on the show. And a good example of that is we're from the Northeast. So we were going back to visit our parents right around Christmas time. So we were like, all right, we're going to road trip from Texas up to DC and we'll hit a bunch of shows along the way.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
it was awesome.
It was so much fun. But part of that trip was we had cold DM'd the UFC fighter, Michael Chandler, who accepted, and he's like a top 10 UFC fighter. He's got 1.5 million followers.
Oh yeah.
By far the biggest guest that we had on up to that point. And we were going back and forth being like, fuck, do we fly Jose in? Do we not? He makes the show so much better. He's such a value add. And then you were the one that was like, dude, we need to do this if we want to do the show the right way. But I feel like that's what you're reminding us of, is like just making those little commitments just to keep taking it to the next level.
I can make a lot more money in so many different ways. I'm pretty sure if I made the show remotely and Danny just edited it remotely, we'd still do well. It might still be like one of the biggest shows and we'd still make good money. But like, I care about the product and I would rather lose money. It's time preference.
Yeah.
It's time preference and proof of work. I want the best product for the listener, the people who actually listen, not the people who just yell on Twitter, the actual listeners. That's what I want to make the best product possible for them. And if that means I have to be away for 2 weeks, away from my family, and have to spend the money, I will. But I think the product quality is so important. Yeah. And 5 years in now, 5 years and 3 months into this, it's a bit easier. But there was 2 hard years on my own, doing everything, sat in hotels on my own, trying to do everything as cheap as possible, still made that product. It was hard. And by the way, when I used to travel at the start, I wasn't doing video. It was purely because I knew sat with somebody, that conversation would be better.
It is so much better in person, and you actually get to build the relationship, before the show, after the show, which I think is kind of like this hidden value of podcasting that I hope more people are inspired by. It's like, if you're like a young entrepreneur interested in a certain space, within a year's time, you can start a podcast, like get a Twitter account up and running and start putting some of your ideas out there, whatever it is, marketing, sales. And you can legitimately build a business around just making connections through podcasting and talking about it.
Well, think about it like this, right? When you do it remote, they come on, they start, you do the interview, they go. Here, I turn up, say hello, we hang out, do the interview, we maybe hang out for 5 minutes more, but we've become friends now. And then like, if you message me and say, Pete, can you like connect me with so-and-so? I'm like, yeah. And if I'm like, do you know what, guys, actually, I want to talk about what you do on the podcast. You'll come back. And so you've built a bond. You've actually built something in that relationship that you take forward, for perhaps years, and people remember you. When you're doing it remotely, it's just like do the next one. It's like a production line.
100%. It's like, if the remote can be your starting point or your engine, do it. But as soon as you can get to in person, just make that investment. Even this, if we had done this over Zoom, we probably would have small talked for, actually, I would have said 5 to 10 minutes. You do no small talk, so we wouldn't even be allowed to do that. And you would have probably, you would have been like, oh, they're good guys. They're, they're competent, whatever. And then we would have gone on our way, where now it's like, we're sitting down, we're getting to know each other. There's just the intangible benefit of just actually getting to meet people in person, and you build actual friendships that way in real relationships.
By the way, that in-person thing, I kind of hold that policy true for being a guest. Like, if they want me to be on a remote podcast, I'm like, I don't really want to do it. You guys, it's like, come down to the Commons and let's make a show. I'm like, yeah, cool, I'm up for that.
Yes.
I don't like being a guest, but I'm willing to do that because, I know it's an in-person conversation, and I'm going to get something out of it. I'm going to enjoy it, and I know it's going to be better for you. So like, it works both ways for me.
Totally.
Has that investment in kind of the human capital, like the relationship building, been a big part of you just being a better entrepreneur and figuring out other business opportunities that might be out there for you?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if I can even answer it how you want. The only, like, if I was advising anyone else to go and start a business, and they were saying that what their idea was, I would say, look, there's 2 things that you've got on your side, is how hard you're willing to work. Yeah, I've worked hard for 25. I mean, I'm tiring out now, and I'm getting towards the end of like how much I'm going to work hard. For 25 years, I've been the guy who gets up at 6, works all day, and goes to bed. And I enjoy it, but like, I've been that guy. When people are still in bed, sometimes I've done 2-3 hours work. So I've and if I'm doing 2-3 hours after work, I could be doing double the work a day that you're doing. So that gives me an advantage. That is that extra bit of time on the website or on Canva, learning how that works to create nice graphics, or in Squarespace, learning how the SEO works. Like, that's every bit of additional time I get, I can edge myself forward. And then the other thing I do is like, say, just look at your competitors, look at everything they do, and then where can you do a better job? All right, that guy's got a podcast. Does it remotely? I'm going to do it in person. Okay, he's he does videos on YouTube. Okay, my videos are in person. I'm going to have a cooler intro. I'm going to, like, all the things I can do better. So then hopefully I beat them.
All these little 1% improvements that compound over time.
There's a book about that, about the Sky cycling team.
Dave Brailsford and the...
There you go. You know.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you aren't. I mean, you know it. I mean, that was it. It was like every little inch, like every little thing they could do to be better, they did.
Yes, it was like 1% lighter clothing, 1% improved aerodynamics on the bicycle, and they just kept doing these 1% tweaks. And then I think the British cycling team was terrible. Yeah. And then they ended up winning the gold medal, and now they're like one of the best cycling programs in the world, all from 1% improvements.
Yeah, that's
so cool.
It. Yeah, and anyone can do that in their life.
Yeah, there's like that magic in that last little inch of everything. Like you're like, oh, should I lean in hard here? All right, yeah, I'm gonna lean in a little bit harder. And like, I'm sure you were scared shitless when you were thinking about the mortgage payment and not having enough money coming in, but you're like, this is what I'm doing now, so got to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's 2 weeks wait. No, it wasn't missing a mortgage payment. I couldn't even get a mortgage.
Holy shit.
I'll tell you a story offline about that.
Do you have any advice for just kind of punching above your weight with really good guests or target guests for podcasters?
Yeah. People are people. Okay. So you might put someone on a pedestal above you, but they are just a person living their life. And even if it looks like they've got somewhere, they themselves might be like, I have no idea how I got here. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. People are just people. And so like, never put somebody above you. You can go toe to toe with anyone. And God, yeah. I mean, if it's a podcast, just create the ladder and work your way up it, right? What's the best I can get? I can't get them, I can get that, but it's just a ladder.
Yeah.
I don't really have a good advice there.
Yeah.
Have you always had that mentality of like, people are people, like there's no reason why I shouldn't reach out to this person? Like,
no, that's something that's come out of like this podcast doing okay. Yeah. So like I'm going to try and explain it without sounding like a dick. But what's happening doing this podcast is weird things like I've been in an elevator in New York and someone's recognized me. And that's happened a lot, being randomly recognized. Or you're at a conference and someone comes up to you and they ask for a photo and they're nervous, their hand is shaking. And so all the things like that, there's like this little bit of celebrity that's come with this. I'm not saying I'm a celebrity, but absolutely not. But I'm saying there is that comes with it. But you know how like I've got this. You look back at a photo 10 years ago and you look completely different. Or even 5 years ago, you're like, I've put some weight on, I've lost some weight. But every day you look in the mirror, you look the same as the previous day. It's kind of like that. That person's gone, oh, Pete McCormack's got the podcast. I want to photo. Like they're a bit nervous. I'm still that guy. I'm still the guy in day one that I am now. So I would just say to people, like, that's not everyone's like that. Some people get an ego and become total bellends and like just fucking forget about them. But I found most people are good, decent people, and they're just another normal person living a different life from you.
Totally. It's a good mental model.
Yeah.
Right. And we also just forget, like, you don't get what you don't ask for too. You don't ask Pete for a picture or ask you to come on your show. Like, you're obviously not going to say yes because you don't even know that you want that thing from that person.
You miss every shot you don't take. You miss every shot you don't take.
Yeah, it's amazing too, because most people, I feel like, think it's so unattainable, but really quickly you can build momentum, which is something that we kind of, like, one of our big takeaways from the past year was just like, if you can go from 0 to 1 and just create enough of some traction, you can just replicate it, build on it a little bit. It doesn't need to be perfect, but just keep building on that and it'll go somewhere.
Yeah, look, forget the people who get the Spotify deals. Everybody starts with 0 listeners and they start with 0 followers on Twitter and 0 views on YouTube. Every podcaster starts with that. So like, if you want to do a podcast and you see, oh, how did they do that? They started and they kept showing up, and that's it. Like, everyone starts on 0.
Yeah.
This is a very selfish and personal question to us, but we're probably around like 2,500-ish downloads an episode, I would say right now. I think 10K is probably the metric that sticks out for us. Like, we'd love to get to 10,000 viewers an episode. Do you think that's just a matter of just continuing to get great guests and compound, or how do you think we should be thinking about maybe getting to that metric?
Yeah, it's funny you should say that because my one was 5,000 because I spoke to a media company and they said, you won't get any sponsors like from us until 5,000. So I was like, okay, that's a clear benchmark for, you got to 2,500. So you found 2,500 people who want to listen to it. Do you think you've capped out on the only people who like your content?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So there's very few podcasts that just go straight up. Like you look at mine, it's gradual growth with like little boosts every now and again. Maybe you got a good guest or maybe Bitcoin doubled in price, but it's turn up. How many shows a week do you make?
3.
We're doing 3.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's the magic number, I think.
You think 3?
Yeah, I did 2 and then went to 3. 3's the magic number. I think more than that's too much. How long have you been running it?
Since March last year.
So you're coming up to 1 year.
Almost a year.
Yes.
Yeah. So if we speak again in another year, you might be like at 10,000 a show. And you're like, how do we get to 25,000?
Right.
You haven't capped out. Do people email you and tell you they like the show?
Yes, a good amount, a lot of DMs, people that are talking about they're changing their lives from a health perspective and just little things that are just so reaffirming.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to check it out later. There's another listener. Yeah, I mean, you will get there. I don't know how long it will take. I don't know what the market size is. There are certain things that put people off. Like I can't get certain guests or certain people won't listen to my show because it's what Bitcoin did. The word Bitcoin puts them off. You got the same meat, but at the same time, I get people because it has Bitcoin, and you get people because of beat. So how much competition is there out there?
Yeah, there's a good amount, but I think from our perspective, we're like these outsiders looking in where a lot of people have grown up in the health space or like been a doctor and they have a show and they're coming at it from like a little bit more of like a refined angle, like wanting to talk about studies. And we try to keep it like a little bit more conversational for like the everyday person to just come across and be like, all right, I'll get healthier if I listen to the show.
We haven't talked about anything to do with health.
We need to get there.
We do.
Because I'm unhealthy as fuck.
So you were vegan.
Yeah. I did, this is a funny thing. I did 2 years as a vegan. I honestly think it was the healthiest I've ever felt.
Really?
But at the time I didn't have a job and I wasn't getting any of the, very occasional meat substitutes, but like very occasionally I'll drink whiskey or very occasionally I'll eat a fucking chocolate. Like,
yeah,
I don't have a perfect diet. I'm always going to have a bit of shit in my life, but I was making every meal fresh, fresh veg, whatever, nuts, pulses, whatever. And I got in really good shape. I was running so fast. So my 10K was about an hour. When I went vegan, I got that down to 53 minutes and I got my 5K down to 23 and a half.
Wow.
And I could just fucking run forever. I felt great. Now what happened was I went back to work, doing the podcast. I didn't have the time, so I started having more pastas and the occasional microwave meal and then like a sandwich from a shop, and I didn't feel good. I didn't feel good. And I remember I was in San Francisco with my kids. I was like, I feel like shit. We're going to go and get a steak. We did. And I didn't feel great straight away, but I think the thing with these diets, it doesn't matter which one, whatever diet you're on, you can be healthy. You can find really unhealthy meat eaters because it's everything they have outside of meat.
Yes.
What they're doing. You can find really unhealthy vegan people because they're not having a good diet. And you can find really healthy carnivores of really healthy vegans. This whole war between the two, it's like whatever's right for you, you can do it healthy. Honestly, that first year as a vegan, I felt incredible. Like just clean, and I slept well, and my skin was good. I could like if I wasn't working, I could happily do it again. It had no issue for me. But as somebody who works and you've got to make food quick sometimes, absolutely, I need animal products.
Yeah. One of the things we try to talk about is like removing the dogma from the whole nutrition landscape. Like
totally.
If you just eliminate processed foods, which is basically what a vegan or carnivore diet or paleo diet does, and cook all of your meals, you are going to be so much healthier than the version of yourself 3 months ago, 6 months ago.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I've been trying to do since January. I've been trying to get food which doesn't have ingredients.
Yes.
Now, it's never going to be 100% of my life. There's going to be times I'm going to have a pack of, you call them chips, you call them crisps, pack of crisps or like a chocolate bar, whatever. I've given up drinking. I occasionally treat myself to a Coke Zero, which I know is full of crap. But my trajectory is to get away from things that have ingredients because I want to be the person who brings the ingredients together.
Yeah. And if we just run the numbers, if you're eating anywhere from 14 to 21 meals a day and you're cooking
a day?
A week.
What are you saying?
But if you're doing 21 meals a week and you're cooking the majority of your meals and every once in a while you're like, look, I want to go have pizza with my kids. I want to have some dark chocolate. I want to have a whiskey, a Coke Zero. You're still batting over 900 because you're cooking all your meals, you're controlling your inputs, you're eating real food, and you can actually enjoy your life. And the whole point of eating this way is that you can actually build a resilient body where it's like, okay, I can have some dark chocolate or some pizza and I don't feel like absolute shit because I know that I can just get right back on the path the next day.
Yeah, I'm 44. I don't feel great. Like I know I felt better, and I was like, this is the year I've got to. Firstly, I actually gave up drinking at the start of the year, and I'm like in my head, I'm going to do January, but I think I might try and do the year. And there's a couple of things to that. I drink a lot when I'm away on these trips because, again, on the plane, they give you a drink and then I go out to dinner and there's like a dinner every night and then me and the boys are back. There's just like a social thing. Like when I'm at home, I mean, when I go and watch my football team, I don't drink because I'm at football, I'm on it. I don't want to have it. Sometimes I have like half a beer. But when there's social occasions, I always drink. And I was like, the only way to stop that is just to stop it. Because if I say I'm only going to drink one night, no, that's fucking bullshit. So I think for someone like me who doesn't have the self-control, I think alcohol is a poison and I think it's not good for me. So that was the first one. I'm going to eliminate that. That's my thing in January.
The addition by subtraction works. Like I feel like so many people have like one or two things that if they could just cut it out, it'll lead to all the other positive things that can follow. Like, you know, you cut out beer for a month, you start to feel better. And you're like, oh, maybe I'll start cooking more of my meals and eating a little bit better.
Well, I have a lot I have to change. I was like, I can't do it all in one go. I mean, I'm an addict. You know, I'm 9 years sober cocaine. I don't know if you know this, but I had a bad problem with it. And that was the running. The running became the cocaine.
Right.
You know, and I ran every day. And I always have addictions in my life. Work is one. And so I have to just like make sure I pick the good ones over the bad ones. And so, yeah, so January is alcohol, but maybe the whole year. February is nicotine because I have a vape, you know. And then the other one I really want to target is sleep. March is sleep. But I'm working, you know, the funny thing is I'm sleeping so much better since I stopped the alcohol. I sleep fucking great.
Yeah.
Yes. The extremism is interesting because it's such a dichotomy where, you know, you had this cocaine addiction, but at the same time, it's that extremism that fuels this work ethic that gives you this incredible show. And we've had on a number of former vegans that have gone carnivore, which makes sense because you're just swapping one extreme for another. Yeah. But it does make me think, I mean, we've had such good success on a carnivore diet. I just wonder if 30 days carnivore, just eating all animal products, how that would make you feel.
Yeah, I've considered it. I mean, I tried before, and like the first few days, I just fucking shit.
Yeah, because your body's going through this adjustment, like explosive diarrhea, because that's what.
But I mean, I've done like a week, 10 days. It never made me feel good. It felt heavy on me. Whereas when I did vegan, it felt light on me. So it's never really worked for me. A lot of people said try it. It's hard. I've also got a daughter. You know, I have to make meals for her. Busy. It's discipline, and I should be able to do it. But the carnivore thing, I've tried it. It just doesn't work for me, and so I don't think I'll ever do that. But paleo, I quite like. Yeah. I mean, also there's like this salad I make. I can be quite. I can eat the same meal every day and not give a shit. Yeah. And there's a meal I found which is like spinach, chicken and steak strips, a bit of feta cheese. An avocado. I could eat that every day of the year. Yeah, there's no ingredients. It feels good. And so when I'm at home, I have that a lot. Takeaway I've got rid of this year because again, I fucking Deliveroo and that shit is like, oh.
100%. Yeah, I think it's interesting too, whether it's paleo, keto, carnivore, all those approaches work. It's just what makes the most sense for you. So if you really like vegetables in your salads, but you're getting chicken breast in there too, and steak, and you love it, so you're gonna keep doing it.
Yeah,
that's what matters more than anything.
But I also like fruit. These diets, I say you can't have fruit. That's bullshit. I like fruit. I'm gonna have fruit. I like strawberries. I like bananas. I like apples, and I'm not gonna cut that out. Water's another thing. I could go days without actually properly drinking water.
Yeah.
You know, I'd have like a coffee and then a Coke Zero and then like another coffee, and it's like, have I drunk water today?
I feel like that's not all that uncommon.
Yeah, I think, and so what I've started doing is carrying a bottle around with me of water, and maybe I'm having 2 of these a day at the moment, which isn't enough, and maybe I'll get to 3 and then 4. But that's another thing I'm really conscious of. Danny was saying to me, is like, most of the times when you think you're hungry, you're actually thirsty and you're dehydrated.
So we had Safety in on the podcast, and he was talking about this time period in his life where he started eating more carnivore, more animal protein, and he like turned his health around. And it was at the same time when he was starting to really have some serious business success. Was that similar to you when you were running a lot and starting to eat a little bit healthier? Like, was that started the foundation for you to dive into the podcast?
No, see, I get why people say that. I've always done okay at business because of how hard I work.
Yeah.
And I've actually sacrificed my health for it. Now it's like, I can't keep saying tomorrow I'm going to sort my shit out tomorrow and tomorrow. I can't keep doing that. I'm 44. I'm closing down on 50. I'm getting to the stage where things won't repair or get better, or you could do things which is lasting damage. So I think I'm approaching the point where I'm starting to think about my health like an addiction, and I think that might be a good thing. Like how can I be an addict? Because like when you're an addict, you're an addict. You know, addicts understand this. That's why alcoholics who haven't drunk in 10 years, they say, I'm an alcoholic. Like, I'm a cocaine addict. I say that because you want to constantly remind yourself that you have a weakness and you can fail.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, like, it's how do I treat that like a new addiction? And figured out, yeah, I'll get that.
Well, I think the encouraging thing too is we've had on so many guests in their 40s, 50s, and 60s that are very intentional about how they take care of themselves. They eat carnivore, they eat paleo, keto, whatever. And there's so many guests that will say to us, I feel like I could kick the 25-year-old version of me's ass, which is such a cool thing to be able to say. But I think for a guy like you that's 44 and you're saying, look, I think I could feel better.
I could kick my 25-year-old's ass because I'm 4 stone heavier. I just fucking sit like that.
Yeah, but you could get stronger, you could lose weight, you could feel better. And it's like, if all these people are doing it, of course you can do the same thing too. And you've identified the issue, which is the first step. And now it's like, all right, let's figure out, what foods, what systems do we need to bake in so you can, feel as good as you deserve to feel.
And I've been pretty good on this trip. Like me and Dan, like we didn't get any steaks when we were in Nashville. Didn't get any snacks in the house. I got a case of Coke Zero as my treat. That was it. If I wanted a Coke Zero, it was there. Then we got a case of water, case of sparkling water, bacon, eggs, chicken, steak, some cheese. A good find, salt and vinegar almond nuts.
Salt and vinegar almond nuts?
Yeah.
You like those?
Yeah, man, they're good.
Yeah.
I mean, they're better for you than salt and vinegar chips.
100%.
And they basically taste the same.
Yeah.
We got that. We got avocado. Then every morning, we would have the bacon and eggs, maybe a bit of avocado, skip lunch because we're making the show, and then dinner would cook a steak or whatever. The one bad day I had, we had a guest come. We had 2 guests coming. One bought Amish cake, which, by the way, fuck me, that's good.
What is that?
I don't know. It's like some southern
Crack.
cake.
Something divine.
Dude, it's like cinnamony. And then another one, this Dutch guy came in with these pack of waffles. They're like,
I know.
but the thin ones.
Stroopwafels?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, brought them in. He's like, try one. I was like, yeah, that's nice. And then last night we come in, and by the way, we've been out to the bars and I'm having water. We went out to Prince's. I had some like fried chicken actually that night.
Some hot chicken, Nashville.
Yeah,
you got to do it. You got to do it.
Yeah, I had some hot chicken. Anyway, they carried on drinking, so I was like, I'm going back to the house. A little fucking packet was looking at me.
Yeah.
I ate 3 of them. I don't know what, they're 150 calories each. I have no idea, but I ate all 3. If they hadn't have been there, I had my banana or an apple, I would have gone to bed. So I got to keep that shit away from me.
Yep.
Yeah. I lived in the Netherlands for a little bit, and I ate those things like, they were a steak.
They're good though, aren't they?
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, and you can just keep eating them.
Yeah.
Eating them. So, yeah, I mean, look, I need a bit more discipline, but I've got to keep that stuff away from me.
Yeah, but it's like we were talking about before, these 1% improvements. If you start with, hey, I'm not going to drink for this month, or hey, I'm not going to drink for the entire year. Hey, I'm going to start eating that steak salad a little bit more and not keeping this crap in the house. And you don't see the progress every day in the mirror, but over time, you're like, holy shit, I've lost 15 pounds. My face looks thinner when I look back to a picture of myself from June. Like you don't feel it in the moment, but over time, that stuff does compound.
Yeah, like I wish I'd have weighed myself before I came out, because I've definitely lost weight on this trip. It might be 2 pounds. And that's maybe what it is. But I know if I'm having, like, you can do the math. Okay, I'm having 2 strips of bacon, 2 eggs, a bit of avocado, and a sausage for breakfast. Worst case, 500 calories. Let's say maybe 600. I have a cappuccino from Starbucks, 140 calories. Okay, so maybe we're at 700. And then I'm having a steak for dinner. Worst case, 900. I'm a good 1,000 calories under my 2,500.
Yeah.
And I've done that every day, and then I've had my bad day. But like, I've done that every day. I know that means I will have lost something.
Yes.
Because I've got a calorie deficit.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, it's really easy to put weight on because it's really easy to do 3,000 calories a day.
Yeah.
When I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's much harder the other way because the discipline, because you know it takes a time. This took years to put back on. If I'm really good, I know maybe over the year I can use 20, 30 pounds, but that's going to be discipline all year. So take some time to see those gains.
Totally. Have you ever had a podcast where you're like thinking about a question the whole time, but you've just gone off in a different direction and then you need to bring it back to a certain point to ask the question?
Yeah, but I never ask it.
I've got a question. I've got a question for you.
I'm just fucking with you. Let me ask you before you tell you that. Have you ever had it? I see there's 2 of you. Have you ever had it where you've just had a blank?
Oh, totally.
Yes.
Have you ever had it where you both had a blank?
We usually can like whip something up. Like there's definitely times where it's been like, are you going to say something? Like, because I don't have anything.
I've had times where I'm like, if Harry doesn't ask this question, we're fucked because I have no idea what to say right now. The show's over.
I don't think people understand. You have that moment where like you're trying to listen to them and respond, but knowing if that's come to an end, you need to be on the next thing. I'd say it happens like 1 in 40 shows. I have a total blank. Like, the fuck am I going to say? And time goes really quick. So I'm like, so the next thing, so I know that's, remember I talked about policies?
Yeah.
When that happens, I'm like, I just need a loo break.
Yeah.
So if you ever see on the podcast, I've gone for a piss, it's just like, oh, fuck.
So that's your system to get back on track.
That's my system, yeah. It's very, very rare. But anyway, I only say it because it happened yesterday.
Sometimes the silence is actually good. Like, you let it sit for a second and you're like, all right. But like most people in the moment, like every time there's silence, I'm like, fill the silence, say something, like ask the question. And I feel like that's where you get in trouble. You end up asking a question that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Have you ever made a show you've not released?
I think we've released every show, but we have had a few shows where we're like, fuck, should we release this or not? And we've always done it. But there have been a few where we were like, the guest was out of their mind or we were just terrible in the way that we were asking questions. But we've released everything. Yeah,
I've had a few. Anyway, sorry, I'm just trying to fuck with you.
Yeah.
But it's also like, what do you do? I feel like, what do you do when you have a guest on, they've gone out of they've given you their time, like you would mention, but the show is just terrible and you don't want to release it. You just say, fuck, I lost the audio video.
No, I tell them.
Or just say.
I've stopped 2 halfway through and said, this isn't working.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. And now I said, like, I'm willing to do this again. Well, actually, I said, this isn't working and you're a dick.
Wow.
And said, I'm not releasing this and I don't want to talk to you again. I'm not telling you who that was, but
off camera, you'll tell us?
No. Funny enough, coincidence, the last time I saw him was here in Austin.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Still a dick. But I've had, the other one I was like, let's do this again. This isn't working. And this is why it isn't working. Let's go away, we'll have a break and we'll come back. I've had that.
Hats off to you for stopping at mid-podcast. That's impressive.
Well, so it wasn't working because of the guest. Like, I wouldn't stop because it's not me. I just carry on and just put it out there and accept it. But, they want to come on the show and they know the benefit and they want a good representation of themselves. They just got it wrong.
Interesting.
Have you done that in person? Sorry, you're going to ask
my golden question.
I was going to say, have you stopped it in person where they actually come out to see you and you still have the balls to be like, this isn't working, we got to...
That's fair. They've only ever
been virtual.
But I have had once. What we found...
Just unplug the Wi-Fi.
What we found that's interesting is that the studio setup is quite big. It's a 4 Sony camera setup. It's usually in a big like lounge. We've got the lights and they get nervous. I don't know if you've noticed people sit down and get nervous. They get really nervous. And we've had someone have a meltdown once. Like they've just lost it. They can't do anything. They can't talk.
Wow.
And we've said, okay, forget about it. Let's go for a walk. We'll roll again in a minute. And you get through it. But you learn tricks about that. So one of the things we've learned to do is we get the guests in the seat as soon as possible. Just get them in the seat, get them comfortable. Danny's talking to them. And then like, I can come and sit down, you do that roll and start. And sometimes they're like, have we started? Like, yeah, we're going. And that gets them through it.
Yeah. That's the benefit of having 2 people as the host though, because it does alleviate some of that stress and like we can kind of pinball off each other and as opposed to just like, you know, you can tell when a guest is nervous. So you're like back off or make them comfortable.
What you 2 do really well, which is impressive. I've been on shows where there's 2 guests and they talk over each other or there's no synergy. You 2 seem to have established this thing where you're like one person, but 2. There's a constant stream. You swap between yourself with questions. You don't talk over each other, but it's like two people as one. And that's, I don't know if that's, you've developed that over time, but I've not seen 2 people do that the way you guys do that.
I appreciate that. I think there was a benefit. So we started the show after we had lived together. And so we kind of, I mean, we obviously have a lot of background and commonality. We played baseball together, went to college together. So what you're saying is probably just, you know, there's a lot of shared interest and we kind of think similarly.
Who's your team?
Baseball team?
Yeah.
I'm a Nationals fan.
Okay.
Yankees.
Okay. I've been to Yankees.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's fucking gets hot there.
It does.
In the summer.
It does.
Yankees are good at the moment.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Very good. They just re-signed Judge for, he was one of the biggest contracts in history.
They went through a period of sucking for a while, didn't they?
They did, but they're back now. I know you. I know you want to ask your last question too.
I've got it in the holster.
You ready to go?
If this question sucks, man.
Yeah, it's good.
It's definitely
a really good question.
It's good.
Can I tell you my baseball story?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not a funny story. It's
I was going to ask you about baseball too. How you?
Yeah. So when I realized I understood it, so I'd been to see the A's.
Oakland A's.
No, Angels.
Yeah, Los Angeles Angels.
Or is it somewhere else? Arkham Angels or Anaheim?
Anaheim Angels.
Yeah,
Anaheim.
I think.
Anaheim.
Strange enough, CJ Wilson was playing for them at the time.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But I didn't know him. I was like, this is fucking boring. Shit.
CJ was boring or baseball?
No, baseball. I was like, this is boring. I'm bored. It's like worse than cricket. And then I started spending a lot of time in LA and I started going to watch the Dodgers play. A couple of games, like, this is all right. And then I went to a playoff game and Justin Turner hit a walk-off home run. And it went wild. I was like, I get it now.
Yeah.
I get baseball.
That stadium is electric too.
It is.
There's actually a great story, fellow Brit, Gordon Ramsay. I think he was like throughout the first pitch at the Dodgers game. He said this on a podcast and he was so fucking bored that someone invited him to the Lakers game. So he left the Dodgers game to go to the Lakers game and people were shitting all over him for it. But I thought that was funny.
I met Gordon Ramsay in Neiman Marcus in Venice.
No way.
Did you?
Yeah, I looked like shit. I was in like my running gear, but like overweight running gear, like recent time. And I was buying pants and he was buying a hat. I was like, you're Gordon Ramsay, aren't you? He's like, yeah. It's like, I look such shit. I didn't even want to ask for a photo. I was like, okay, bye.
Did you get to talk to him at all? You just said, what's up?
I said, oh, you're Gordon. He's like, yeah, hi. He was friendly, but I was just like, I'm not down for this.
That's one of those guys I would really love to know what he's like in person. If he's like the same as he is on camera, like
he seemed friendly. Yeah, but he
doesn't just yell at people on the streets.
No, I think he's a good dude.
Well, we've talked about that as being a potential future segment of the show, getting really good chefs on, and especially someone like that, 3 Michelin star restaurant, like you are operating at such perfection at that point. It's like, what makes these fucking guys tick?
What's the best restaurant here?
In Austin?
There's a few. So there's
one. You'd have one answer.
Mine would be Dai Due.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would be the same thing because they cook everything in tallow. And the guy that owns the restaurant is a really well-known hunter. He's been on Rogan. and everything in there is like harvested or hunted in Texas.
Has he been on Rogan?
Yes, yeah. Jesse. I forget his last name.
Heard it.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the best steak restaurant in still?
So Salt and Thyme probably, or Daidue. Like Daidue is interesting because they rotate the menu so much. Like there's been times where I've shown up and they don't have like the steak that was on there last time. I'm like, oh shit. Like,
can you show up or do you have to get a booking?
You could get in there.
I think you also sit at the bar. Their bar is really nice too. Big open fire grill.
We're Three Forks regulars.
We should go tomorrow.
Okay, let's
go tomorrow.
Let's do it. We'll make it happen.
All right, last question.
All right.
The big reveal.
Last question, put a bow on the conversation.
Okay.
All right, you mentioned the name of your podcast is What Bitcoin Did. But there's like an implication in the name of your show that like Bitcoin is almost inevitable by saying what Bitcoin did. So I'm curious, do you think Bitcoin is inevitable? Will it happen? And were you thinking about that when you named the show?
It's a terrible
Was that a terrible question?
I'm fucking with you. I'll give you the background to the name of the show. So I used to go to LA and Venice and stay at my buddy's place. And that's where I started the show, a guy called Justin. And we decided we're going to do the podcast. I ordered all the equipment on Amazon. I was like, what are we going to call this show? And they were like, the King of Bedford, the McCormack show. He's like, what do you want to talk about? I was like, well, it's going to be about Bitcoin. Like stories about what Bitcoin has done. He said, and he was like, so you're going to talk about like what Bitcoin did for people? I was like, fucking what Bitcoin did. He's like, yeah, fucking what, yeah. So we did. Done. I actually regret the name.
Really? You do?
Yeah, I just wish I'd called it the McCormack Show because 600 shows in, there's shows I want to make, and the guests won't come because I've got Bitcoin. And there's shows I make that I think people could get something out. Like if I had you two go on, we can make a show. We would not talk about Bitcoin, but people aren't going to listen because the show's called What Bitcoin Did. So I wish I hadn't done that. Do I think Bitcoin is inevitable? Absolutely not. I think that's complacency. It's like, is it inevitable we're going to get promoted? No, that's complacency. I will not be complacent about this. It is not inevitable for a number of reasons. It's not inevitable because there is potential regulatory crackdown that destroys it. It's not inevitable because it might not work. It's working now. You may get to the point where, say, there isn't enough, once the halving, once the security budget's down, that there isn't enough money from transactions that affects the security budget. And so, like, what the fuck do? You might have to, you might be looking at me going, shut the fuck up here. You might have to, you might have to have some kind of like, we don't know. I'm like, I think each of these is a low probability, but there's a number of low probability items. They're non-zero chances. So I look at all of them and go, if that happens, what are the scenarios? So I'm not complacent. I don't think it's inevitable, but I think it's got a great shot. And I don't know when we win, but like when we do win, I don't even know what that means. There are also potential implications from it that aren't great.
Yeah.
You're talking about a transition of money from, which sounds great, from, centralized power structures to decentralized power structures. We don't know the implication that has on society. We don't know what implication that has on the way we're governed. And you can romanticize about how it works. We don't know if there'll be wars, bloody fights. We just don't know. And so I'm not complacent about Bitcoin succeeding, and I'm not complacent about what the impact there is for society. But you can't do shit about this. This is stuff that's years or decades away. So I think we know something is wrong. You can't stop Bitcoin being invented. You can't stop people using it. You can't stop people desiring it. So you accept that and you do everything you can to help spread the knowledge about it, but also just understand the responsibility you have as a Bitcoiner. I think that's my fairest way of doing it.
I like that. So you're generally optimistic?
Generally optimistic, yeah. I believe in humans and people are good. Generally, not always. And I believe a lot of the problems we have is bad money and the incentives around bad money. And I hope Bitcoin is the thing that does fix that. But I'm not complacent about it.
Well, when we win, the three of us are definitely getting, the four of us with Jose, we're all getting steaks.
And Danny.
In Bedford.
In Bedford.
When we're in the Premier League.
Cooked by
the way,
Gordon
if we
Ramsay.
do win, actually, I might, if Bitcoin goes to 10 million, I might have a shot.
You have a shot.
I might have a shot.
We'll be buying all the Premier League teams.
We need to go to a Bedford game and tailgate it and just start cranking ribeyes out.
I'm in.
April 15th, last home game of the season against Tame Reserves. Might be celebrating the win of the title. Just putting it out there.
Just putting it out there.
Otherwise, next season.
I love it. Well, Pete, thank you so much for doing this, man. So good to meet you. Such good conversation. I know we could probably talk for 2 more hours, but we got to get out of the studio now. And just appreciate all the work that you're doing.
I appreciate you having me on. I've really enjoyed this. Like I said, I don't normally like being a guest. I don't think I'm very good at it, but I've absolutely loved this. So thank you so much. I look forward to dinner tomorrow.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.